Picture this. What if one single diplomatic decision in 1878 had completely rewritten the story of World War I? What if Germany had chosen Russia as their primary ally instead of Austria-Hungary? This alternate timeline isn't just fascinating speculation. It was actually a real possibility that could have changed everything we know about the Great War. When Germany was formed in 1871, Otto von Bismarck understood a terrifying reality. He reportedly said that if Germany found itself fighting a two-front war, they were guaranteed to lose. This fear shaped German foreign policy for decades. Bismarck's solution was brilliant. Ally with two of the three major powers that bordered Germany: France, Austria, Hungary, and Russia. Since France and Germany got along about as well as oil and water after the Franco-Prussian War, that left Austria, Hungary, and Russia. Initially, Germany managed to pull off the seemingly impossible, the League of Three Emperors, binding Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Russia together. But this alliance was destined to collapse, and it did so twice, once in 1878 and again in 1887. The breaking point came during the Eastern Crisis. Russia wanted to create a massive Bulgaria that would essentially become their puppet state, giving them access to the Mediterranean. Austria-Hungary felt betrayed because this violated their sphere of influence in the Balkans. Britain saw Russian expansion as a threat and convinced Austria-Hungary to oppose their former ally. Here's where history could have taken a dramatically different turn. What if Germany had supported Russia's Bulgarian plans instead of mediating against them? This decision would have created a domino effect that reshaped the entire European balance of power. If Germany chose Russia over Austria-Hungary, the Habsburg Empire would have been furious. They would have immediately pivoted toward France and Britain, joining what would become the Entente instead of remaining with Germany. This seems like a terrible trade for Germany, losing Austria-Hungary to gain Russia. But the mathematics actually work in Germany's favor. Russia was the stronger power with fewer internal problems. While Austria-Hungary was plagued by ethnic tensions and military incompetence, Russia had massive population, growing industrial capacity, and vast resources. From a purely strategic standpoint, backing the bear over the eagle made sense. This alliance would have created fascinating partition plans. Germany and Russia secretly agreed that if they went to war against Austria-Hungary, Germany would annex all German-speaking regions while puppeting Bohemia and Moravia. Russia would take Galicia and help liberate the South Slavs. Only Hungary would remain independent, stripped of its Austrian territories. But the real game-changer would have been Italy's position. Historically, Italy had claims against both France and Austria-Hungary. With France and Austria-Hungary now allied, Italy would naturally gravitate toward Germany and Russia. Suddenly, the Central Powers would include Germany, Russia, and Italy, a formidable combination. The Ottoman Empire presents an interesting wild card. Both Russia and Austria-Hungary were traditional enemies of the Ottomans, so the empire would have had to choose between two hostile alliance systems. This decision alone could determine the war's outcome. Britain would almost certainly join France and Austria-Hungary, but not immediately. They'd be closer politically and economically to this new entente, especially since Germany allied with Russia, Britain's longtime rival in Central Asia and the Eastern Mediterranean. Now imagine how World War I unfolds in this scenario. The war would likely start 3 years earlier, triggered by the Italo-Turkish War of 1911-1912. Italy's attack on the Ottoman Empire would force alliance obligations, pulling in the major powers ahead of schedule. Austria-Hungary would face a nightmare scenario, fighting on virtually every front simultaneously. They'd battle Germany from the north, Russia from the east, Italy from the south, and Serbia from the southeast. Romania would likely join the German faction after being promised Transylvania, completing Austria-Hungary's encirclement. The military implications are staggering. Russia, instead of fighting Germany while trying to advance into Austria-Hungary, could focus entirely on crushing the Habsburg forces. The Brusilov offensive might actually achieve its goals, capturing Budapest and triggering Hungarian rebellion against Austrian rule. Germany wouldn't need the Schlieffen Plan in this scenario. Instead of the desperate gamble to knock out France quickly, they could hold defensive lines against France, while concentrating on dismantling Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire. Belgium might remain neutral, keeping Britain out initially. Ironically, France might attempt their own version of the Schlieffen Plan, trying to break through German defenses to relieve pressure on Austria-Hungary and capture the industrial Rhineland. But with Germany not overextended, this French offensive would likely fail catastrophically. The war's duration would be dramatically shorter. Austria-Hungary, fighting on all fronts while completely encircled, couldn't survive more than a year. Once the Habsburg Empire collapsed, the Ottoman Empire would follow despite British and French reinforcements. Spain might even join the winning German side, forcing France to fight on 3 fronts. The peace settlement would reshape Europe entirely. Germany would annex German-speaking Austrian territories and create a Belgian protectorate. Italy would gain Libya, Tunisia, Nice, and Savoy. Russia would control Galicia, Constantinople, and parts of Ottoman Armenia. The Habsburg Empire would be completely dissolved, with Hungary surviving as a rump kingdom. France would get off relatively lightly, losing only Nancy and Lorraine plus their North African territories. Britain would retain their empire but lose influence in Europe and the Middle East. But here's the fascinating twist. This alternate alliance system would be inherently unstable. Russia's Polish puppet kingdom would eventually claim German territories. Russia and Italy would clash over Balkan influence. Within 20 years, new alliance systems would form, potentially triggering an even more devastating Second World War. The technological implications are equally intriguing. With the war ending by 1913 or 1914, tank warfare might never develop. Military tactics would remain stuck in a pre-mechanized era, fundamentally altering the nature of future conflicts. This scenario demonstrates how a single diplomatic decision in 1878 could have prevented the historical World War I entirely, replacing it with a shorter, less deadly conflict that would have created a completely different 20th century. The butterfly effect of Germany choosing Russia over Austria-Hungary would have rippled through generations, changing everything from the Russian Revolution to the rise of fascism. Sometimes the most pivotal moments in history come down to simple choices between potential allies.